Welcome back to another episode of the OKC Foodcast while Ashley mimics what I say. You didn't catch that.
I feel like I'm the one out on the joke here.
Well, because I say the same thing every time, right?
I was mimicking him. That's Nabil over there. I'm Ashley. And today we are joined by a special guest, a returning guest, actually. Mm-hmm. We have Miguel from Rome Coffee Company here with us. So welcome.
Thank you. I seriously didn't think you guys were ever going to have me back.
We strongly considered it.
You and Dom did break some rules last time, broke protocol.
I'll behave today, I promise.
No, we're excited to have you back.
Which is why we didn't have Dom back.
Right.
If you notice. No, just kidding. Dom wasn't available. He's always welcome.
So Miguel is going to, he's extremely knowledgeable on the history and some fun information about coffee, the world of coffee that we live in, how we got here. So we're going to dive into some cool coffee history here in a minute. But let's start with our Eat of the Week.
Let's do it.
I'd say, Nabil, you go first if this is going to be your Eat of the Week.
Because yeah, you know what my Eat of the Week is. It's so good.
Freaking amazing.
Yeah. So my Eat of the Week and kind of Drink of the Week was credited to Miguel and Dom.
And Rome Coffee Company.
Had a s'mores cold brew. It was fantastic.
Yeah, it looked
and
really
then
good.
This thing
this
that
delightful
Miguel
little
brought
treat.
us. It is a cafe fromage made with Rome's cold brew. And it's amazing. So I'm going to let you describe what this is because you were going off about, you're telling me about it. I'm like, oh, man.
Oh, it is so good. So, one, thank you for bringing us treats.
And two, can I get some more?
Yes. You can just put in your orders. No, we actually did this as a R&D for the recent charity event we did for Cookies and Cocktails.
Right.
And we decided to go with something different, but this was my secret favorite, So I wanted to kind of see what you guys liked, what you thought of it. But it's a Norwegian coffee mousse, cafe fromage. We've done a little bit of a graham cracker s'mores twist on it. So we have a roasted marshmallow at the very, very bottom center, which is like a little treat once you get there.
That I just got to.
It's all a treat.
And then it's a really light and just wonderful tasting mousse with graham crackers crumbled all over the top and some chocolate drizzled in there. And of course, you can't forget the Hershey's bars. So those are mixed into the mousse itself.
Mm-hmm. It is amazing.
It's so good. I'm eating it right now.
I'm glad you guys liked it.
Love it. Absolutely love it.
So thank you again.
Thank you.
My pleasure,
you.
seriously.
And to future guests, we love treats.
Take note. I mean, you don't have to go this far out.
No, I mean, this is...
it'll be much appreciated.
This is amazing. Absolutely. So my Eat of the Week is, this is right up there with my Eat of the Week, but I figured Nabil and I can't have the same Eat of the Week. So I recently took my staff out for our annual staff party. We went bowling, and then we ended the evening with dinner at Bira Craft Pizzeria over in Chisholm Creek.
Ooh, I've been wanting to try that place.
Yeah, it was really, really good.
I've heard great things.
Because I had a big group and we made reservations early in advance, we got their little private dining room. So that was nice. And because there were so many of us, we tried quite a few things. So we started off with, they had a, bruschetta flight. And so it's 3 different takes on bruschetta.
That sounds amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love bruschetta.
It was. My favorite was the one with blue cheese, prosciutto, and a pear slice on top. All of those things put together, my favorite things. We also had their butcher board with a really great selection of meats, cheeses, nuts, olives. It did have a couple of little pickle slices, which were sweet pickles. I'm a dill pickle kind of gal, but they were all right. They were just all right for me. Their beer nachos, also amazing. They're not your typical nachos. They were little flatbreads almost, really thin. Very tasty. The pizzas that we tried was the heater. Veggie number 2, and my personal favorite, the pistachio that had like a truffle honey drizzled on top,
sounds interesting.
and red onion and pistachios. Oh, it was so good. I think it also had prosciutto on it.
Interesting.
And then ended the evening with several different desserts, but the dessert that stole the show was the creme brulee chocolate cake. And so it's basically this 2-layered dessert, the top layer being creme brulee and the bottom layer being the chocolate cake.
Wow.
And it was phenomenal. So the entire night, we also tried lots of cocktails, but it was a night full of food, really good. Highly recommend Bira Bira. It's awesome.
I was just in silence. I'm like, I want to try all of that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just upset. Every time I listen to this podcast, I have to keep a notepad to take note of everything, and I don't have one.
We
with
have
me,
to keep
so-
a notepad too.
Yeah,
like,
I'm gonna have to listen to this and take some notes on that.
Yeah, it was all very, very good. So well done, Bira Bira.
yeah.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, so what was your eat of the week, Miguel?
My eat of the week. We just got our coffee into buttermilk. So this past week was our first week there. So I went, and I've been there many times, but I went there and I checked it out just to kind of make sure everything was running smooth and they didn't need anything. And I ended up sticking around and grabbing their honey chicken buttermilk biscuit
Oh, yeah.
and their hash browns.
Yum.
Oh my God.
Yeah?
It was incredible. Yeah. And they have this little, they have these really, really good hot sauces. I love hot stuff too.
Oh yeah, those
Yeah.
are fun.
Yeah, they're amazing. So I grabbed the ghost pepper stuff, sat in the corner by myself because I was just kind of rolling in and out. And I was chewing away at this biscuit, completely blown away with how good it was. Drinking a coffee and pouring it with hot sauce. And I'll never admit this to my wife, so hopefully she's not listening. But I have sometimes eye allergies, and it just flared up while I was in there.
no.
So like I started crying.
And then you had the ghost pepper?
No. I just started crying. It was just an emotional. To anybody else watching, they probably thought, "Man, this guy that really likes that coffee or really likes that sandwich." Because I was there, like tearing up, taking glasses off, eating. Just it was amazing, man. So
This is so beautiful right now.
that's what it looked like from the outside. From the inside, my eyes are just burning like crazy. So,
So this is just for anybody that happened to be there on that same day watching you. Like,
I promise
what is
I'm
up
not
with this
crazy.
guy? So this was at Buttermilk in Paseo.
Yeah, they've got such amazing stuff. I've never been there and had a bad meal. I mean, they really love what they do, and
I hate to admit this, but I have not tried Buttermilk yet.
oh yeah, you have to.
It's really good.
Yeah.
I try. Yeah, their chicken biscuit sandwich is really good, and I love like their different hot sauces.
Oh yeah.
Like when
Nice.
we went there, we got a bottle of each one of them and kind of lined them up, and we're like, all right, I'm gonna try each one of these because I love hot sauces and I love
Yeah.
sauces. I love condiments.
I love condiments too.
So
Yeah.
I'll try every single one that's there. Like if I go to like Big Truck, I need to have all the salsas.
Oh, the sauces. Yeah.
Like at least one round, and then I'll be like, today I'm gonna have these two.
Yeah.
That's funny.
Speaking of Big Truck, there is it mango habanero? Is that
I
right?
think that's one of them. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that I can't get enough of. I love their flautas with that mango habanero salsa.
Yeah, they've got a lot of good
The
stuff there.
sweet and spicy. Oh, that's my jam.
This is way off
Your
topic.
salsa.
Huh?
It's your salsa.
Yeah.
You said jam.
That's my
No,
jam.
no. Well,
That's my salsa.
that's my salsa.
There you go.
I try to make a hot sauce at the house once,
Ooh.
and that was promptly shut down. That was a one time. That was a one-time thing that will apparently never happen again.
Oh,
So,
no?
so not like these cafe fromages.
No. It was really good. The problem is that my wife had to evacuate the house because when I started cooking it,
Oh,
yeah,
the
it
fumes.
was really. I mean, it didn't bother me at all. But she came into the kitchen looking like she was in the middle of a war zone.
Oh man.
And I've since been forbidden.
You were gassing her out.
I was gassing her. So I'm not allowed to make hot sauce anymore. Anyway, I'm sorry.
That's funny. That's funny. Well, that sounds awesome. All of this sounds really good. So let's jump into some coffee.
Some coffee. What a segue.
Yeah.
Let's talk about coffee.
From hot sauce to coffee.
Yeah.
I mean, both of those things prick you right up.
they do.
So-
They perk you right up.
Have you guys ever had a cold brew with pepper or hot peppers or anything in it?
I've not had a cold brew, but I have had a, I guess it was a latte with some kind of chili powder or chili pepper in it. So it was I think it was like a chocolate latte with adding and then spicy added to it. It was really good.
I'm not one for spicy in my drinks.
I got you.
I like
Except Bloody Marys.
I love spicy foods. Nope.
Really?
Yeah.
No, like, and I've even talked about, like, I love all the spicy margaritas, like a jalapeno pineapple margarita. I love those.
I will have all the jalapenos you want to throw on my food, but
Don't put it in my drink.
yes.
Fair enough.
Yeah. But tell us about this.
No. We tried. We've tried. We've tried to play with variations for our cold brew, and it's always been a colossal disaster. So
Yeah.
eventually we'll find one that works, but we haven't done that yet.
All right.
But anyway,
You stick a scorpion pepper in there and just let it sit.
just walk back slowly.
So let's start with the coffee origins. Like, what is considered the birthplace of coffee?
Well, that's somewhat debated, right? I mean, all of the coffee that's in most of the world today came from pretty much Ethiopia and Yemen.
Okay.
So really, there's some debate between the scholars, but for the most part, I think everybody agrees that Yemen coffee came after Ethiopia actually invaded Yemen, and they ruled over them for about 50 years. So they brought the coffee plants with them, but it really started in Ethiopia. And it was used not the way that we use it today, but they used to grind the coffee beans and mix them with like animal fats.
Okay.
Make kind of like little balls that were like snacks, like little energy snacks. Yeah.
Interesting.
Or they would chew the leaves of the coffee.
Like old-fashioned caffeine pills.
Yeah, absolutely. With fat. It's like
With
paleo
fat.
before paleo was cool.
Fat and caffeine.
Yeah.
Boom, what a start.
Yeah. But I mean, as far as historians go, back to the 1500s is when really people started drinking coffee in a way that resembles something that we do today.
Okay. Cool.
So when coffee was discovered, I know there are some fun stories that surround that discovery.
There is.
Tell us one or two of those.
There's a couple fables. I think one of my favorite, which is obvious by my Instagram handle, a roaming goat.
Right.
That is your Instagram handle?
That is my Instagram handle. Yeah, roaming goat.
I thought that
there's-
was because of Rome Coffee.
Well, I figured out a way to tie them both together.
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
There you
Okay.
go.
All right.
So the wheels are always turning, my
There you
friend.
go. Oh, hey. If there's someone that happens to, that's you, right?
Coffee mastermind, right? I wish. No, there's a really cool story, and I love this. And who knows what's true and what's just legend. But there was this farmer. His name was Caldi. He was not a farmer, a goat herder. And he was working his goats and just walking down the mountainside. And he found one night that some of his
I'm just laughing at Ashley just sat back and it's like eating the cafe fromage while you're telling this story. This is like story time right now.
It is story time with an incredible dessert. I'm
Right.
just like,
Everybody grab a
let me
blanket.
sit back. Like, Miguel's the knowledgeable one about all this. I don't know much of this. I'm just gonna nod and eat my dessert.
Just sit back and enjoy.
Yeah. All right.
So back in a wonderful day. No.
So he was on the mountainside.
He was settling down for the day, and he noticed that a couple of his goats were just acting crazy. They were just jumping around and dancing and buying and doing what goats do, just to a level of excess that is not acceptable
Doing what goats do,
for
I like
normal
that.
goat behavior at that period of time.
Right.
But
You're
So-
in goat timeout.
he didn't really give it much thought, right? He let it go. The following day, the same thing happened. So he started to get really curious as to what was causing his goats to just go kind of berserk. So he kind of followed the goats a little bit closer, and one day he realized that they were eating these fruits from these bushes, these shrubs. Turned out to be coffee shrubs, coffee trees in Ethiopia. So he decided to have some. And that evening, his goats were dancing. He was dancing with his goats. There was a whole lot of buying. There was a whole lot of shenanigans going on. And
So it's basically like a caffeine high.
there's
or-
a caffeine high. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So he harvested these, brought them back to town. And from there, they kind of got, they started spreading. At first through the local monks, right? That were like, hey, what's going on with this?
Yeah.
So they were giving it to their, there are people that were learning from them. so that they could stay awake through all the lectures.
Okay.
So that's kind of one of my favorite stories. I mean,
like that.
who knows how much truth there is to that, but the idea
I
of,
like to
I'm
think
gonna say
it's true.
Very true.
Yeah.
seems
Yeah.
plausible to me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Totally.
Dancing with goats, who wouldn't
Yeah.
want to do that?
Yeah.
Right?
So
On the mountainside.
they're cute.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I like that story. I'm going to say that's fact.
Yeah.
You heard it here.
You heard it here first.
So also, coffee was used for different purposes other than just waking up in the morning as we kind of use it now. And it symbolized something, perhaps.
Yeah. Like you were saying, the monks used it with their students. Right. It was.
Yeah.
Did it have like a religious tie?
Yeah, there was, when coffee was first started to be used, it was used as a stimulant, but it was used as a medicinal stimulant. And it became tied in with religious ceremonies, more so to keep people awake so that they could learn what they were trying to learn. So from there, though, it kind of started spreading to the masses. You can't keep a good thing, locked down. So
Right.
it's funny, wherever coffee came up, there's a couple things that always happen, right? Coffee would arrive. People would brew coffee in some sort of communal environment. People would gather there. And it would always be a place where there would be talks of enlightenment, right? Philosophy and science and whatever. And always that usually ran to revolutions or some sort of like
Right.
upset feelings about whatever the local government was doing. And then
Okay.
subsequently it usually got banned. So that's like the general trajectory of coffee throughout history in every place that it showed up.
How funny, because now, like, coffee shops, people are talking basically about the same type things.
Oh, yeah.
And
You
it's-
go to like, hey, let's get together to talk. Coffee shop.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, think about it, right? Like anything that you do, whether it's like a beer or a beverage or some sort of food or, like you guys do your cookbook outings.
Yeah.
Or even like the modern day, like joining a Facebook group or joining some sort of Xbox group. It's a group. It's a place where people congregate to do something.
Yeah.
Right. The difference with coffee is it's not a downer. It stimulates and it motivates and when people get in that mode and they're surrounded by other intellectuals, they get motivated to explore
Yeah.
a life and things around them. So I think that's one of my romantic notions of coffee that I've always like really held near and dear to my
I
heart.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I like that.
I like that a lot.
There's actually there's a ceremony. Oh, a ceremony. There's a cultural thing that they do in Ethiopia that's been going back for as long as coffee's been prepared, and it's a ceremony. It's a preparation ceremony. It's super cool. And it symbolizes like acceptance and friendship and basically becoming part of a community or
That's
being
cool.
welcomed into the home.
I like that.
And so I could walk you guys through it real quick.
Yeah,
if you don't
yeah.
mind. So
Are we
basically,
going to do it right now?
we're gonna do it right now. So, we need some sound effects. I'm pulling out my brazier to heat up some coals. You would come into a home and you would sit on these short 3-legged stools, and usually the lady of the house, the woman of the house, would start a brazier fire with hot coals. And in that, they would grab like the green beans that they used in that area that they were really proud of, whatever their best beans were, and they would start roasting it. And they would roast it over the coals in like a steel plate,
Okay.
and kind of move it around, and all those aromas would start to come out. A lot of times they'd even throw incense in the coals just to help the aromatics, right? And as you're sitting around, you're kind of sharing stories and history and your travels and whatnot. So you go through that. Once the coffees are roasted and they're like a golden, like not like a brown cinnamon color, then they would pull those out and put them in a mortar and pestle, and they would grind them essentially. And they would mix them in with spices like cinnamon and cardamom, and like just to
Nice.
help bring that stuff out, right?
Yeah.
And it would be often like they would pass it around so the guests could experience the aromas and the whole experience of roasting and that fellowship. You know what I mean? It wasn't just like, let's have a cup of coffee and hit the road.
Right.
And then they would serve them. They would serve them with sugar in little, like 3-ounce, almost like shot glasses. Almost. Yeah, like I mean, they're like little coffee cups.
Right. Probably adorable.
Yeah, which would
Probably
sugar.
adorable.
No, seriously, I've actually looked online to try to get one of these like little braziers because I think it would be such a cool thing to have, like a
Yeah.
good piece of history,
Yeah.
But so they would do that, and they would run through this, and they would do it. They would do it 3 times.
Okay.
So you would sip your coffee. You'd basically put your grounds in there. They would kind of settle to the bottom, and you sip your coffee. and then they would proceed to brew another batch, and they would do it a second time, and then a third time, and then the saying went something along the lines of like, 1, 2, 3 times. Now we're friends for life, basically. You know, so I think it's like a really cool thing, and if you go to certain parts of like really culturally rich, very culturally coffee dependent cultural places in that part of the world, you'll still be able to experience that today. So kind of a cool little story. I've always
It
enjoyed.
is a cool little
It's
story.
like,
I like
added onto my list of travel
Yep.
and
Yeah,
experience.
yeah.
I will
Yeah.
butcher it up. It's like a Boli Berkey Sostka. I think that's the way that they say it, and it basically stands for 1, 2, 3 times.
Okay.
And anybody who speaks that language is probably gonna be laughing at me right now, but it's the best that I can do on Portuguese. Excuse me.
That's awesome. I like it.
Yeah, that's cool.
But from there, coffee just kind of went everywhere. But it was, I mean, all of the coffee that we drink today really originated from one spot, right? So there was a lot of stealing and thievery and shenanigans and getting coffee to the world.
Okay.
So
I think this is like my favorite part.
really,
The spread of coffee and like
spread
how
of-
this happened.
Yeah.
All right.
Just because it just sounds so comical, right? It wasn't that Ethiopia was like, here, have some coffee plants and let's start growing more coffee. No, people were being like very, very particular and had these grand schemes of trying to get coffee into their land.
oh yeah, absolutely.
It sounds ridiculous.
No, absolutely. And when you watch these movies, do these like greatest heists,
Right.
like diamonds in a bank vault and
Yeah.
whatever, right?
Yeah.
This is like real life stuff. I mean, if you look at it, one viable branch of coffee with live berries gave birth to the biggest boom of coffee production in South and Central America.
Interesting.
Like one branch.
That's
right?
all it took.
That's
How
nuts.
crazy
So
is
like when
that?
you look back and you look at the value of that one branch, that rivals any diamond, any
Right.
gold bar, any crazy thing
Yeah.
that you could find.
Yeah.
But
Imagine a gold bar that reproduced.
oh, that'd be
That's
amazing.
what it was. Right?
Wait, that would devalue. I'm pretty sure that would devalue the gold. No.
Yeah.
Well, like I could kind of hit the high points of coffee
Yeah.
thievery
Yeah.
if you guys
Oh,
want to
yeah.
go through on that road. Yeah.
I love heist movies.
You right?
All right. So let's. So
Wait,
this-
let me sit back now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
grab your
my
desserts.
dessert, grab
Story
my
number
wine.
2.
Story time.
So, like I indicated, Ethiopia was kind of it's the well-known center for where coffee began. Ethiopia went ahead and they actually conquered Yemen, and they brought their coffee plants to Yemen. And the Yemenese coffee was like a really good thing. They had some good growing conditions, and they really busted it. The port of Mocha, which is was in the recent book from Dan Edgars, I think, talks about the revival of Yemenese coffee. So they really had a good thing going. Problem was they couldn't defend their borders too well, so somebody else came in. The Ottoman Turks eventually came in. This is when the Yemenis were back in control, but the Ottoman Turks came in and they took over the city or the area, the country. And at that point, they started exporting coffee everywhere. So, but not in a form that could be grown and reproduced, but they were actually picking, processing the berries, getting the coffee roasted or getting the berries boiled to where they couldn't be used, and then they would transport them out.
Like it was like, if you want some more, you know where to find it.
You know where to come.
Right.
Yeah. Like,
Okay.
I'm going to teach you where to get the fish, but I'm not going to teach you how to fish.
Yeah.
So,
It's like, I'm your dealer. You come to me.
So come to me.
Yeah.
And this was big. I mean, this was going on for many, many years. And then the early 1600s. Now, mind you, the penalty for stealing any coffee, viable coffee, I mean, these were serious penalties. You would get killed, right? I mean, you're opening up a natural resource that they're capitalizing all their money on, right? So there's this guy, Babu Bhutan, I think was his name.
Okay.
And he actually taped. This is early 1600s, so I don't really know how he taped it. I don't believe it was Scotch tape.
Okay.
It was probably something different.
Tree sap, banana leaves,
not
and
duct
sap.
tape.
But banana leaves and sap is what I'm
It
going
was,
with.
duct tape before
Banana
duct tape
leaves
was
and
duct tape.
sap. Nice.
But he actually taped a couple of beans to his gut, and he left the country.
Okay.
He actually imported coffee into India.
All right.
So got to India, planted these beans, made them viable. So that was one of the first like major heists of coffee.
All right.
So around this
Funny.
time, right, the Dutch have a huge shipping empire, so they're everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So these Dutchmen end up stealing an entire tree.
Oh, not just two beans.
No, and bringing it back to Holland.
Wow.
And they bring the tree back to Holland. They end up keeping it alive, keeping it viable, take that, and they plant it elsewhere.
That's impressive.
Amazing, right?
That haul with the tree and keeping it alive.
Yeah.
So now, with their huge shipping empire, another Dutchman steals from the Dutchman. Right? And they actually end up bringing coffee to some of the regions that we love to get coffee from now, like Indonesia, Java, and Sumatra. Those, if you know coffee, those are all really popular
Yeah.
spots,
Right.
right? And they bring stuff there. But again, like everybody who stole it thought they had the right to protect it, right?
Yeah.
So like I'm going to steal it from the Turks who stole it from, whoever else, but like nobody else can steal it from me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But as time went on, there was the mayor, I believe it was the mayor of, some city in Holland. I can't think of the name of the city now, but there was the mayor provided a tree as a gift to one of the French kings.
Oh.
And it was like, hey, you obviously the expectation was like, this is something special.
Mm-hmm.
You could have it, you could look at it, you can't do anything with it, right?
Oh, yeah.
So this,
Enjoy the tree.
Yeah.
To
Look at
have and to hold.
enjoy, look at it, do not sell it, don't start a trade. But we all know how that's going to play out. So this French king takes it, puts it in their royal botanical gardens behind lock and key, behind giant walls and guys with pikes and whatnot. And of course, if there's money to be made, there's someone that's going to take the risk. So there's
course.
this gentleman, Gabriel de Cleo, who goes in, manages, again, under the threat of potentially being killed if he gets caught, ends up stealing a live piece of the tree, a live shoot from that tree, hauls ass out of the country,
Right.
and goes to the island of Martinique.
Okay.
And that particular heist is what introduced nearly all of the coffee to South America.
Wow.
Yeah, and so he made himself a very wealthy man in Martinique.
Right.
And from Martinique, he imported it to a couple of other spots. And then it just kind of continued like that. And every country that got it just hoarded it because they knew the value of it.
Right.
And like hands down, my favorite story, and I'll leave it here because I don't want to bore you guys to death.
No, this
No,
is
for-
so
yeah.
interesting.
For
I
hours.
love it.
So you guys know I'm Portuguese, born and raised.
Yes.
Right? So, this a couple years before this happened, the Napoleon actually ran the Portuguese monarchy out of Portugal, right? They escaped on British ships to Brazil. Got to Brazil, declared Brazil, and they were already that was already a colony or a territory of Portugal. But got there, considered Brazil the kingdom of Portugal, and started developing all these botanical gardens. Right. A couple years later, this gentleman by the name of Francisco de Mello was called in to settle a dispute between two not warring states, but disputing states that were neighbors.
Okay.
He was brought in as a neutral party.
All right.
So, comes in. Brazil at this time has been trying to get coffee beans in forever, and they can't get them. Nobody will trade with them. These surrounding countries just don't want to give up their golden goose.
Right.
So Mr. Francisco seduces.
Ooh.
This is gonna get seedy, guys. So if you have children, go ahead and put them away.
Earmuffs
Seduces the for me or for the
for the
Oh,
children.
okay.
For the children.
Unless you feel like you need them.
no, I'm good. This French governor, his wife gets seduced by this amazing, magnanimous Portuguese individual.
A little biased, are we?
Sorry?
What? I said a little biased, are we?
No, hey, I don't know what you're talking about, man. What are you blaming me for? Give me that fromage back. No,
Too late.
and she, of course, there's the obvious benefits of seducing someone. So, but aside from those, he also, she gave him a bouquet of flowers when he left, a very large bouquet. Inside of the bouquet was a hidden shoot of coffee beans.
Well played.
Yeah. So for those of you guys who
Nice.
think it's inappropriate for women to give you flowers,
Think again.
Think again, because that actually ended up bringing coffee to Brazil. And
Wow.
and you may not know this. I might be taking some of this for granted, but Brazil has since become one of the biggest producers for coffee in the
Right.
whole entire world. So
Right.
It's
And
crazy.
now that this has spread to so many different parts, the beans, like how it initially started, because they're being grown in different areas, now they've taken on different flavors, right?
Yeah. So coffee, much like wine, is affected by the environment that it grows
Right.
in. So the soil conditions, the altitudes, and everything else. Generally, coffee is broken down into one of two plant types: Robustas and Arabicas. So Arabicas was what was being peddled all around the world. And Arabicas are generally a little less hardy. They're a little harder to grow. They have to be grown at higher altitudes, but they produce a much nicer cup of coffee.
Right.
Robustas came in after.
Is that where you get the robust
Well,
coffee?
no, that's you're not entirely off.
Okay.
Robustas are a lot more astringent, but
Okay.
they also have a lot more caffeine.
Okay.
And usually they mix them into espresso blends because you end up getting a nice crema.
There you go.
When you pull a robusta, you'll mix it in with your other beans, but it's going to be a little bit in there. It's a lot cheaper to produce, a lot easier to grow,
Okay.
and you could run it at a much lower altitudes. So that has a lot to do with how good a coffee is, right? And Robustas came along because the Arabicas were getting decimated by this rust. It was a disease that was just killing like varietals all around the
Oh,
world.
gosh.
So that's when the need for that kind of cane came around. But yeah, we've tried playing with beans that were grown in like volcanic ash.
Oh, interesting.
And they have really like fruity and bright acidity notes. Not like
Really?
acidity like astringent, but like like that's where some of your fruity flavors come from. Yeah, so depending on where it's
That's
grown,
surprising
yeah,
coming
yeah.
from volcanic ash.
it's crazy. Well, like
You would-
soils that have heavy volcanic ash.
Right, but
concentrations.
according to the flavor chart that you brought us, I would I would have guessed that from volcanic ash, it would have tasted more. I don't know, the grain.
more
or-
towards
More
like
carbony.
more carbony.
Yeah,
No, it's I think
more citrusy.
more citrusy comes out of some of the volcanic ashes. Yeah, and then again, like I said,
Interesting.
weather conditions will modify it.
Yeah.
Those flavors down on the bottom there, those I call those more of like the earthier flavors.
Yeah, I would think volcanic ash.
Actually, this
Earthy.
actually is not that kind. It's earthy, but the wrong kind of earthy.
All right.
Man, I would love to do like a coffee tasting
Yeah,
and like, see
this is
and like
the
taste
beans
the
from the
difference,
volcanic
and that'd be
ash.
very interesting.
Have you guys ever done a cupping?
No.
No.
Okay, so it's really interesting, but it's very funny to watch.
Okay.
So in a cupping, it's how you grade your coffees. So you'll get a variety of little saucers with the water already in there at the right temperature, and you drop in an appropriate amount of coffee that's pre-measured, and you let it mix and you let it kind of brew, and it all kind of settles to the bottom. And then what you do is you take a spoon, right, and you just drop the spoon in to kind of move whatever grains are floating out of the way, and you get a spoonful of coffee. You bring it up to your lips, and then you violently inhale. Yeah.
Slurp.
Yeah. So imagine a table with 7 or 8 people sampling coffee. Yeah. Right. So anybody who's watching is gonna be like, "I'm getting the hell out of here" because these people are nuts. All right? But that's how you that's how you cup. We just did one not too long ago. We're researching some new beans that we're trying to bring into the company. If we could ever set up another one, I'll make sure to try to give it enough time to let you guys know.
Yeah,
that'd be
and then I feel
awesome.
like we're gonna need a tutorial beforehand.
Oh man, coffee people are kind, heartwarming people.
Yeah.
We'll walk you through it.
All right.
Well, with the coffee people we've met, I can't argue that
Yeah,
yet.
true.
Give me a minute.
Well, very cool. I like these stories.
I know.
Yeah.
So eventually, coffee made it to the U.S.
It did. 16. Oh God, I'm gonna be wrong on my dates here, but 16. I'm just gonna go with 1600s.
1689.
16. Oh man, are you cheating?
No.
Yes.
1689.
No. I don't have my
1689.
computer in front of me or
Yes.
anything.
1689. It was called the Green Dragon Cafe or Tavern. I'm not really sure now.
Tavern.
It's in Boston.
Yeah.
Which is a place near and dear to my heart because that's where I'm from. So
Oh, nice.
I love Boston. Boston's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
yeah, that's where it kind of started, and coffee took off. I mean, really, like I mean, we obviously, our Americans came from the UK, from England, and they were heavy on the teas. But when they got to the States, coffee was king. You know.
Nice.
But this coffee shop, it also served ales and beers and teas and coffee. But coffee was its thing, and it was like every other coffee shop, a breeding ground for like thought and revolutionary thought. And I think it was Webster that actually said that that particular cafe was like the birthplace of the revolution, you know, because that's where our John
Did you say
Adams. Webster.
Like the dictionary?
But the person that wrote the dictionary.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm there. I'm just making sure
I'm thinking of like
the same
a Bill is
Webster.
a law, you know, like the little cartoon.
Right,
like,
right,
hey,
right.
guys. Yeah, that guy. That's kind of where a lot of the seeds of our American Revolution were born, was in places like the Green Dragon and other spots like that. So, yeah.
That is, I mean, it'd be a fascinating time, right? Mm-hmm. Just being in a tavern and like just huddled around tables and talking and hashing all these things out over a cup of brew.
Right.
Amazing, right? I mean, like if you sometimes you want to get like a little time machine and just be able to like, I don't really want to live there
Like
because
fly on the wall type of thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like I like
wanted the time machine where you just go experience just a little bit,
like
and then you can come back.
the creeper time machine, not the
Not
time
the
machine where
experiential time machine.
I like deodorant and you know like not dying at 30, you know like. But yeah, no. So like coffee, there's a couple things that kind of helped coffee take over in the U.S. We've all heard. Well, we're going back to history class now.
Okay.
The stamp tax.
Yes.
That the lovely kings of England decided to impose on us. That led to the whole saying that no taxation without representation.
Right.
Which, of course, I'm going to skip the boring details, gets to the Boston Tea Party. And Boston Tea Party dumps, of course, a bunch of tea into the Boston Harbor. At that point, that message was heard so loud and so clearly throughout the colonies that coffee almost became the patriotic drink.
Oh, interesting.
Because of that, because it represented something. You know,
Right.
like I'm not going to drink my tea. I still need my fix. Coffee's pretty good. That's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah.
You know, and it got, that's kind of how it took its roots.
Okay.
And with every major conflict or every major military evolution or anything like that we've ever had in our history, our grip and our like addiction to coffee to some extent has just gotten tighter and tighter.
I mean,
I believe that.
It's totally like, don't mess with my coffee.
No, don't.
Right.
Well, look, I'll tell you what. There's a funny story, right? If there's money to be made, people are going to try to obviously manipulate the situation,
Of
right?
course.
That's just, I think, to some extent, human nature.
Hence the
Yeah.
plant thievery.
The plant, exactly, plant theory, those poor plants. So that there was no different in Boston, right? Coffee started becoming huge. Sugar was getting to be something that was a commodity people were depending on. And some of these warehouse owners were hoarding coffee and sugar in order to artificially inflate prices.
Okay.
And there's a story of about 100 women who basically were like, enough's enough. Mm-hmm. And they went into one of these warehouses and just stormed it in and like stole all the coffee,
Nice.
stole all the sugar. Yeah, there's actually, I'll read you guys a little, I brought a little note. I thought you guys would enjoy this. This is
Okay.
actually something from Abigail Adams. And she said, quote, these women were so overcome by anger, they tore down the doors to this warehouse with such vigor that the men within the warehouse were stupefied by the overwhelming force.
Nice.
The women walked out with the coffee, sugar, and a bunch of stunned men just stood around shocked by what was transpiring before them, but too afraid to do anything about it.
Hell yeah.
I mean, don't mess with coffee and don't mess with women.
Hashtag feminism.
Right. Hell yeah.
So I mean, like, so I guess that all demonstrates that, like, people like their coffee.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I could relate, because if I don't have my coffee in the morning, I definitely want to kick a door down. I just don't have the energy for it.
You're like, I guess I'll just wait for my cup.
I guess I'll just wait till tomorrow.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah, so that's pretty much our introduction of coffee into the U.S. You know, it was the same thing during the Civil War. I mean, we got crazy with coffee then. There was stories of campfires just blooming. Only the North could get coffee, not the South.
Okay.
Because there was embargoes, and I won't bore you with those details. But coffee was like a big thing. So you would see all these fires bloom across the hillsides at night as all the soldiers were like starting their little campfires to roast their coffee. They said that the hills would just light up.
Interesting.
Yeah, and so that it goes to there. I mean, like really, the 1800s. There's a lot of cool history in coffee, right? Maybe more for a coffee person than the average lay person. I'm a complete coffee
I'm
nerd.
totally intrigued.
Well, I mean,
right now.
I read some of these and I was intrigued as well. So
Awesome.
it doesn't have to be a coffee person.
Yeah.
Good. I'm glad it translates. We do have a dark period in the 1800s. By that time, coffee had pretty much been introduced where it was going to be introduced. Now the process was building farms and making money. And of course, with that, some of the worst aspects of human nature came out, and taking advantage of human capital,
Right.
slavery and endangered servitude, and all sorts of horrible things happened during the 1800s. And that's a really dark black eye for coffee,
Yeah.
But that's where some fortunes were made and lost, and that's where some of the big names that we know now that started to kind of come to the top, like the
Okay.
Folgers, the Maxwell Houses,
interesting.
the Post, which was a coffee substitute, but Post, and Arbuckle Coffee, which you could still get today on Amazon.com, by the way.
Really?
Arbuckle coffee.
Arbuckle
Interesting.
Coffee is the coffee that won the West,
Okay.
apparently. So
Is that still the tag?
it is, yeah, it absolutely is, yeah. It's there's a little anecdote that they say that most of the cowboys and ranchers didn't even know that there was any other type of coffee that existed. It was only
funny.
Arbuckles, yeah. Anyway, but he was big on marketing, so he might
Yeah.
have caused that to happen a little bit, but. So that kind of brings us up to modern history, with the Howard Schultz and the Starbucks and everything
Right.
else. Are you guys familiar with the waves of coffee?
I'm not.
No.
So there's...
Can you ride these waves?
You could ride these waves. We've been riding these waves for a very long time. Everybody agrees that there's 3 waves of coffee. A 4th wave is kind of brewing, and a lot of people are agreeing that that in
direction's
fact
going.
is the direction that we're going. And these basically dictate like huge evolutions in the coffee trade, right? And the first wave of coffee was moving from isolated farms, not really sharing crops with anywhere else, like coffee just being kind of isolated in certain areas. And like I said, that big blow up in the 1800s.
Right.
So not so much all through the 1800s, you had that huge industrial evolution, but then towards the end of the 1800s and early into the 1900s, you had Arbuckle, who introduced roasted coffee beans,
Okay.
right, as opposed from selling green, because that's the way everybody got their coffee beans. They bought them green and roasted them at home,
themselves.
right? There was also the invention, which seems ludicrous now, but the invention of taking coffee and putting it in a 1-pound bag.
Okay.
Right. Again, Arbuckle was responsible for that, and all of those evolutions, the machinery that came in, the invention of the espresso machine and whatnot, all those things came in, and they kind of formed that first wave of coffee.
Okay.
It made coffee accessible and cheaper, right? And it brought it out to the masses, not only to the elite but to everybody else.
Right.
So that's the first wave of coffee. The second wave of coffee started in the late 70s, mid 70s, and that was with the introduction of specialty coffees. And specifically, I say quote unquote specialty coffees, because what that means is that it's not some sort of like single origin or anything like that. It's coffees that are being cupped by coffee sommeliers, the curators, that's what they're called in
Okay.
coffee, and they're cupping at 80 or better. Right, so those are considered specialty
So
coffees.
like really highly rated coffee.
Yeah, really highly
Okay.
rated coffee. So now, like on the second wave, you had years of instant coffee and Folgers and Robustas
Right.
that would just come into the market super cheap. It was access.
Yeah.
You hit the 70s, now people want quality, right?
Okay.
What's better, right? So that's kind of like the second wave of coffee comes in. That's where they start focusing on quality, roasting types, mild, dark, et cetera, and of course like grinding techniques and stuff like that. So then around 2002, we kind of get into like the third wave of coffee, which some will argue that's still where we're at. And the third wave of coffee was wondering, you guys remember the Starbucks riots? in Seattle. So like a bunch of people basically took over the Starbucks, and there was riots on the street and everything else.
No, I didn't know about this.
Look that up. It's an interesting story, and I mean I could go into it, but I don't want to waste time. I mean we don't want to make this through a 3-hour podcast. So
The reasons of the Starbucks riot next on
episode
Okazifluka.
35, part 12. But Reader's Digest version, people were aware that there was exploitation and horrible things happening around the world, and big corporations were making a lot of money exploiting like farms and farmers that were making pennies on the dollar. You know what I mean? So you have someone who's making in one day what someone pays for coffee. You know, like one day's wages is worth what you would pay for a cup of coffee in the U.S.
Gotcha.
Right, and a lot of times you're paying multiple times what they're actually making.
Right.
So that third wave kind of brought the focus in. That's where we get the fair trade.
Yeah.
Right. That's where that kind of came from. Now people are wondering like, hey, where's my coffee coming from?
Yeah.
Like, what about the farmers? What's their ideology? You know, like what's their morality compass? Right.
Right.
The roasters, how are they importing them in? Like, I want to know about that.
Yeah.
So that's when you find, your favorite roaster, because they share your morality, they share your vision.
So that's like the debatable fourth wave.
Third wave.
Okay.
Yeah. And that third wave, I mean, everybody agrees, that kind of kicked in after, at the turn of the 2000s.
Okay.
And really recently, some people say like around 2016, 17, that's kind of where the fourth wave of coffee came in.
All right.
Which is amazing, right? Because now we are centuries. We're 5 centuries into the consumption of coffee. And we're still figuring out ways to innovate, right? And the whole concept behind the fourth wave of coffee is all about using how basically automation and the things that we've done to make coffee easier to brew and access, and the machinery that we bring in, how those things are actually ruining some of the really pristine flavors of coffee, right? So that's where like new brewing technologies come in.
Okay.
If any coffee shop owners are listening to this, they're probably shaking their heads right now. I know people have been cold brewing for a while, right? But it's never been like a mainstream thing. You know what I mean? But now people are doing that. They're bringing in new techniques for brewing, new machinery that's like allowing you to make coffee, but still enjoy all the nuance of all the flavors in the coffee bean. And that's kind of like this new technology, a new way to enjoy a crop, and something that's been traded and fought over and fortunes made and lost for centuries.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's kind of like the wave that we're riding right now, and it'll be really, really interesting to see where that takes us. You know?
Absolutely.
That's kind of where we sit. You know what I mean? We are strictly a cold brew company. We don't do anything else.
That's kind of like you entered on that fourth wave.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So-
Bringing your cold brew to Oklahoma.
Yeah. Very cool.
Surfing it in,
Surfing it in.
riding that fat face wave.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I am blown away with your knowledge and expertise on coffee. Like,
I really appreciate that.
Yeah. And
It's something that's passionate to me, so obviously.
no, I've been thoroughly intrigued during all of this.
And thanks for coming on and sharing this with us and our listeners out there.
Absolutely.
Oh, it was a blast.
And
man.
again, thank you for the treat.
Oh my gosh, that was
Mind-blowing.
delicious. Yes.
Mind-blowing.
I mean, another way to use coffee. Delicious.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. There's
For sure.
101 uses for coffee.
Yeah.
Are you gonna write that book?
Yes, I'm working on that cookbook right now.
Oh,
That'd be
that's
fun.
a good idea.
Let me know if you need a collab.
This is the
right?
third time that this has happened, right? That we've talked about a coffee cookbook. It's gonna happen now.
I love it. Well, be sure to follow Rome on social media. It's romecoffee.co. Is that
Yeah,
right?
we're on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter.
Okay.
And you can reach out to us on Facebook. It's Rome Coffee Company. On Instagram, it's romecoffee.co.
Okay.
And then on Twitter, I think it's Rome Coffee Company as well. And if you see the bison, the buffalo, then you know you're on the right track.
Right.
So just follow the footprints.
Footprints, yeah.
And if you look for me, I'm Roaming Goat on Instagram. You're welcome to reach out and harass me, and we'll be more than happy to talk all day.
Yeah.
So.
And you guys have some sweet t-shirts I've seen you posting about.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you're also at the OSU Farmers Market if somebody wants to stop by and try your cold brew.
Yep.
Try their cold brew on nitro.
Yes.
With the lavender simple syrup.
It's the lavender and vanilla
Lavender
bean, right?
vanilla bean. It's a
I
syrup
always,
that we
I always
make.
forget
I know,
about
I
the
know.
vanilla bean because the
But
lavender is just
good.
so
good.
Yeah, it's our one opportunity to really interact with our customers since we're manufacturers.
Right.
We don't get to see that as much. So.
Yeah.
Just for any herd members that are listening, thank you so much for your support and for being with us throughout this whole evolution. We've had a blast, and thank you guys for putting up with me for another hour. So.
Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. We've enjoyed it. And you can follow us on Instagram and Facebook, OKC Foodcast. And if you'd like to email us to send us some listener feedback, or if you'd like to collaborate, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at okcfoodcast@gmail.com.
And as always, share this podcast with a fellow food lover and coffee lover, specifically this episode.
Absolutely.
And make them listen to all of it. But leave us a rating, write us a review. We love getting those positive feedback.
Absolutely.
And we appreciate it very much.
5 stars, well deserved.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Miguel. And until next time, friends, eat well and be happy. Bye.
Cheers.